In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war, and for most, this is a curse. Death stalks every battlefield. Hope withers in the face of overwhelming darkness. Victory is fleeting, and even the greatest heroes eventually fall to age, treachery, or the endless tide of enemies. But for one Ork Warboss, war is not a curse. It's the greatest gift the galaxy can give. This is the story of Tuska, who styled himself Daemon-Killa. This is the tale of an orc who looked into the very eye of terror itself and said, "That looked like a good scrap." This is the chronicle of a warlord who bypassed the defenses of Cadia not to conquer, but simply to find bigger, tougher enemies to fight. And most remarkably, this is a story of perhaps the only being in the entire Warhammer 40,000 universe to achieve an unequivocal happy ending. Because Tuska Daemon-Killa found exactly what he was looking for, a good fight that never ends. Tuska was once what you might call a normal Ork Warboss, if such things can be said to exist. He commanded a vast WAAAGH led by his boys from the front, and collected trophies from his greatest kills. His trophy rack was a thing of brutal beauty, adorned with skulls, horns, and the remains of enemies who had been foolish enough to stand against him. But Tuska liked nothing more than pitting his strength against something larger than he was. While other warbosses were content to crump Gretchkins, squash Humies, or batter other orcs, Tuska always sought the biggest, baddest, most dangerous opponents he could find. The greater the challenge, the more Tuska's eyes gleamed with anticipation. He traveled the galaxy aboard his Kill Kroozer, the WAAAGH, a massive orc vessel cobbled together from scrap, looted Imperial ships, and mech boy ingenuity. The WAAAGH carved its path through space, bringing violence and mayhem wherever it went. Tuska's reputation grew with each campaign, each trophy added to his rack. But everything changed in 890 M41 when Tuska encountered something that would alter the course of his existence forever. In 890 M41, Great Boss Tuska's flagship Kill Kroozer WAAAGH was invaded by a demonic entity as it carved its path through the warp. This was no ordinary boarding action. A towering, many-headed nightmare materialized aboard the ship, slaughtering its way through Tuska's crew with supernatural fury. Lesser leaders might have retreated, might have tried to seal off sections of the ship, might have called for help. Tuska did none of these things. When Tuska learned that a towering, many-headed nightmare is slaughtering its way through his crew, he strapped on his power claw and sprinted towards the sounds of battle, bellowing his war cry. The confrontation came on the WAAAGH's bridge. Orc and Demon met head-to-head in a clash that shook the very structure of the ship. The many-headed beast was a creature of pure warp energy, a horror that would have driven lesser beings mad just by looking at it. But orcs don't work that way. Orcs see a monster and their response is simple: "Oi, that looks like a good fight." The resultant crash between Orc and Demon was titanic. But when the fighting was over, Tuska had a new set of horns with which to adorn his trophy rack. Standing over the dissipating remains of the demon, Tuska made two important realizations. First, demon trophies were magnificently spiky, far more impressive than anything he'd collected from mere mortals. Second, and more importantly, demons gave one hell of a good scrap. In that moment, Tuska's destiny was sealed. He had found his calling. If there were more of these incredible opponents waiting in the warp, then by Gork and Mork, he was going to find them and fight every single one. Following his encounter with the warp beast, Tuska made a decision that would have horrified any sane commander in the Imperium. The Great Boss rounded up as many Weirdboyz as he could and utilized them to help bypass the Imperial defenses around Cadia in order to invade the Eye of Terror in his search for more demons to fight. Let's pause for a moment to appreciate the sheer audacity of this plan. The Eye of Terror is literal hell. It's a massive tear in reality where the warp bleeds into real space, where the laws of physics are suggestions at best, and where the Chaos Gods hold dominion. Entire Imperial crusades have been launched to keep the horrors within the Eye from spilling out into the galaxy. The Cadian Gate, the region around the fortress world of Cadia, was the most heavily defended system in the entire Imperium, having withstood 13 Black Crusades from the forces of Chaos. Warriors pray they never have to venture into the Eye of Terror. Entire regiments would rather die than be ordered to enter that nightmare realm. Tuska looked at the Eye of Terror and saw a target-rich environment. His plan was characteristically orky in its simplicity. Gather up all of the Weirdboyz, also known as Ork Psychers, use their powers to punch through the Cadian defenses and charge straight into hell itself. No grand strategy, no careful planning, just pure, unadulterated enthusiasm for violence. When Tuska's WAAAGH reached the Cadian system, Imperial Command experienced something between panic and confusion. The appearance of a massive Ork fleet near Cadia should have triggered immediate, desperate defense. The last thing the defenders of the Cadian Gate needed was to fight orcs while simultaneously holding back the forces of chaos. But then something strange happened. Instead of attacking Cadia itself, Tuska's forces assaulted the nearby planet of Prossen. Imperial commanders watched in bewilderment as wave after wave of orcs threw themselves in this worthless rock. A hostile training world with no strategic value whatsoever. The Imperial Navy intercepted what they could. The Cadian Guard on Prossen held the line as best they could, and everyone waited for the inevitable, a pivot towards Cadia, the real assault beginning. It never came. As suddenly as they had arrived, Tuska and his boys disengaged and charged directly towards the Eye of Terror. The Cadian High Command could only watch in stunned confusion as one of the largest orc fleets they'd ever seen simply left. They'd used Prossen, a barren training ground, as a warm-up. They'd treated one of the most heavily defended regions of Imperial space as practice. Tuska was headed into the Eye of Terror, and he couldn't have been happier about it. When WAAAGH Tuska plunged into the Eye of Terror, they entered a realm that defies description. The demon worlds within the Eye are nightmares given form, planets where the ground is made of screaming faces, where time flows backwards and forward simultaneously, where reality itself is a plaything of the dark gods. The sights would have driven any human insane within moments. Guardsmen who glimpse such horrors go mad, their minds unable to process the fundamental wrongness of chaos. Even Space Marines, those transhuman warriors designed to face the worst the galaxy can offer, must steel themselves against the corrupting influence of the warp. Orcs don't have this problem. Orcs don't philosophize about the nature of reality. They don't contemplate the implications of non-Euclidean geometry or worry about the metaphysical ramifications of time-space distortions. They see weird stuff, shrug, and get on with the crumpin'. These orc invaders of the Immaterium soon attracted the gaze of the blood god Khorne, when they plunged headlong through the Eye of Terror in search of fresh carnage. Their dangerously unhinged warlord, the self-styled Daemon-Killa, had already made his mark upon the Eye by bringing battle to several demon worlds devoted to Khorne's rivals. Tuska did not discriminate. He rampaged through domains belonging to all of the Chaos Gods. The crystal worlds of Tzeentch, planets made of pure thought, where reality shifted with every contemplation and change was the only constant. Tuska and his boys smashed their way through impossible geometries, crumping whatever crystal guardians and scheming demons they found. They didn't understand the complex plots of the Architect of Fate, and they didn't care to. The jungle worlds of Slaanesh, realms of temptation where seductive demonettes promised pleasures beyond imagination. The orcs, immune to such enticements and interested only in a good scrap, simply fought their way through, treating the Prince of Pleasure's minions like any other enemy. The plague gardens of Nurgle, festering paradises where disease bloomed like flowers and rot was celebrated. While such environments might sicken other races, orcs, being partially fungoid, were remarkably resilient. They battled the jolly plague bearers and Nurglings with their usual enthusiasm. But it was when Tuska entered the domains of Khorne that things truly became legendary. Tuska's WAAAGH, already diminished by their rampage through multiple demon worlds, crash-landed on a planet literally made of flesh and blood. This was no metaphor. The ground itself pulsed with veins, the air reeked of gore, and the sky wept crimson. This planet belonged to the mighty demon prince of Khorne known as the Blood Prince. When the orcs made planetfall, they were initially met with eerie silence. No enemy appeared. No challenge came. Frustrated, Tuska shot at the bloody ground with his Shuda. The planet trembled in response. He looked at the ground, then at his boys, then back at the ground. Then he bellowed the order that the orc lived to hear. "Fire everything!" The orcs opened with every weapon they had. Shudas, big Shudas, rockets, and whatever else the mech boys had cobbled together blazed away at the planet itself. In response, Bloodletters, the demonic foot soldiers of Khorne, erupted from the surface like a tide of brass and fury. The battle that followed was catastrophic. The Blood Prince himself led his demonic hordes against the invading greenskins, and even by orc standards, the carnage was spectacular. Tuska suffered many deep wounds and his boys took heavy losses. The duel between Tuska and the Blood Prince was titanic. For hours they battled, the Demon Prince's blade flashing, Tuska's power claw crackling with energy. Around them, orcs and demons clashed in an orgy of violence that would have pleased Khorne himself, which as it turned out was exactly what was happening. Eventually, despite his skill and determination, Tuska was overwhelmed. Just as the Blood Prince was about to finish Tuska, his Weirdboyz managed to distract the demon using their psychic powers, giving Tuska enough time to impale the creature between its legs with his power claw before being killed himself. In his final moment, Tuska made what some might call a gesture of his own, crushing the Blood Prince's most vulnerable point with his power claw. The Demon Prince's victory roar turned into a scream of agony as Tuska died. The remainder of WAAAGH Tuska fought on, without their leader, but one by one they fell. The Warboss's vast horde was later eventually slain to an orc by the wrathful Demon Prince and his minions. For any other army, this would be the end, total defeat, complete annihilation, the tragic conclusion to a doomed expedition. But this wasn't any other army, and the Blood God had been watching. Khorne, the Blood God, the Lord of Skulls, the Master of Brass Throne, had observed the entire spectacle. He had watched these greenskins charge into his rivals' domains without fear. He had witnessed them fight with a purity of purpose that even his own demons couldn't match. They didn't fight for conquest or glory or the favor of dark gods. They fought simply because they loved fighting. And when they were beaten, when they were overwhelmed and outmatched, they didn't surrender. They didn't despair. They didn't beg for mercy. They fought harder. The Blood God was impressed. Khorne had such joy in watching the murderous spectacle that he ensured that Tuska's WAAAGH rose once more the very next dawn. The sun, if such a thing can be said to exist in the realm of chaos, rose over the flesh planet, and with the dawn, Tuska and his entire WAAAGH returned, not as spirits, not as undead, but as living, breathing, or at least living, orcs ready to fight again. The cycle repeated. Tuska led his boys into battle against the Blood Prince. They fought with everything they had. Eventually, they were overwhelmed and slain. Dawn came, and they rose again. Over and over, the battle played out. Each time, Tuska would find the Blood Prince. Each time, his boys would battle the demonic hordes. Each time, they would die. And each time, Khorne would resurrect them for another round. The Blood God was so impressed by their limitless battle lust that he took the orcs into his own domain. In the shadow of the Brass Citadel, his elite Bloodletter generals battle against Daemon-Killa's undying horde on a daily basis. The Brass Citadel, Khorne's fortress palace, the heart of his domain in the realm of chaos, now echoes daily with the sounds of orc war cries and demonic bellows. Tuska's WAAAGH has become a permanent fixture, an eternal entertainment for the Blood God. Each cycle, great clouds of fungal spores are released by the dying greenskins to take root and flourish in the blood-stained foothills of the osseous peaks. Yet more orcs are born, grow to maturity, and charge into battle once more. Here's the truly remarkable thing about Tuska's fate. He's happy. This suits the Warboss just fine. He has finally found a good fight that never ends. Think about it from an orc's perspective. What is the greatest thing an orc can experience? A good fight. What's better than a good fight? A fight that's actually challenging. And what's better than a challenging fight? One that never ends, that resets every day with new opportunities for violence. Tuska wanted to fight the biggest, baddest enemies he could find. Now he fights Khorne's elite Bloodletter generals, demonic warriors that have existed since before humanity crawled out of the primordial ooze. He wanted worthy opponents. Now he faces the same elite demons daily, with the added benefit that they never get boring because the fights are always different. He doesn't have to worry about running out of enemies. He doesn't have to search the galaxy for the next challenge. He doesn't have to deal with politics or logistics or any of the boring parts of running a WAAAGH. He just fights, dies, wakes up the next morning, and fights again. For Tuska Daemon-Killa, this is literally paradise. This is Ork Valhalla. He achieved what every orc dreams of, an eternity of glorious combat. And perhaps most remarkably, Khorne is happy too. The Blood God has an inexhaustible source of entertaining violence, a daily spectacle of carnage that never grows stale. It's a perfect arrangement. There's something profound in a brutally simple way about Tuska's story. In a universe where everyone seeks power, knowledge, pleasure, or survival, Tuska sought only one thing: a good scrap. And in seeking that simple goal with absolute dedication, he achieved something that eludes nearly every other character in Warhammer 40,000. Genuine satisfaction. Space Marines fight for duty, but duty is a burden. Imperial Guardsmen fight for survival, living in constant fear. Chaos Champions fight for the favor of fickle gods who will inevitably betray them. Even the vaunted Primarchs, those demigod sons of the Emperor, are tortured by doubt, rage, ambition, or despair. Tuska just wanted to fight tough enemies, and now he gets to do exactly that forever. There's no corruption because orcs are too simple to corrupt. There's no despair because they don't understand the concept. There's no fear because what's the worst that could happen? They die and come back tomorrow? There's no ambition beyond the next fight because that fight is always waiting. It's the purest possible expression of orc philosophy. Life is a fight, and the best life is the best fight. The tale of Tuska Daemon-Killa serves multiple purposes in the lore of 40,000. For the Imperium, it's a cautionary tale about the dangers of the warp and the alien mind. The fact that an orc, a creature of limited intelligence by human standards, could bypass Cadia's defenses and plunge into the Eye of Terror demonstrates how unpredictable and dangerous the greenskin race truly is. Imperial strategists who hear of Tuska's fate can only wonder, what if more orcs get the same idea? What if the entire WAAAGH decides that fighting demons is the best possible use of their time? For students of Chaos, Tuska's story is baffling. He should have been corrupted. The Eye of Terror should have driven him mad or transformed him into something twisted. Instead, he remained defiantly, stubbornly, purely orky throughout his rampage. It suggests that perhaps orcs are even more resistant to chaos than previously thought, not through spiritual purity like the Emperor's finest, but through sheer stubborn simplicity. For Khorne's followers, Tuska represents an interesting theological question. The Blood God blessed an orc, a Xenos, an alien. This isn't about worship or devotion. Tuska doesn't pray to Khorne. It's pure appreciation of martial prowess and the love of battle. It suggests that Khorne's favor can be earned not through ritual or sacrifice, but simply through being really, really good at fighting and never ever giving up. And for the orcs themselves, if they could understand the full story, Tuska would be the ultimate hero. He's the orc who found the best fight in the entire galaxy and gets to enjoy it forever. He's proof that the orc way of life, fight hard, die fighting, and who cares about tomorrow, can lead to genuine fulfillment. Every day in Khorne's domain, if time can be said to flow normally in the realm of chaos, the cycle repeats. Dawn breaks over the blood-soaked foothills of the osseous peaks. Fungal spores that were released by yesterday's fallen orcs have grown overnight, maturing into fresh warriors ready for battle. Tuska wakes up, his power claw freshly charged somehow, his trophy rack gleaming impossibly, his enthusiasm undimmed inevitably. His boys gather around him as excited as they were on the first day when they crashed onto the flesh planet. Maybe today will be different. Maybe today Tuska will finally get the better of the Blood Prince. Maybe today the orcs will push all the way to the base of the brass citadel itself. Or maybe they'll die in exactly the same way they died yesterday, and the day before, and countless days before that. It doesn't matter. The fight is what matters. The glorious, endless, perfect fight. Somewhere in the brass citadel, Khorne watches and smiles, if a god of death and war can be said to smile. His bloodletter generals sharpen their weapons and prepare for another day of combat against the greenskin horde. The Blood Prince, recovered from yesterday's humiliation, plots his revenge against the upstart Warboss. And Tuska Daemon-Killa charges into battle once more, bellowing his war cry, ready to prove once again why they call him the greatest demon fighter the orcs have ever produced. In a universe of grimdark hopelessness, Tuska Daemon-Killa found joy. In a setting where even the Emperor of Mankind sits as a rotting corpse on a golden throne, where Primarchs are dead or damned, when entire worlds burn and species go extinct, one Ork Warboss achieved the unthinkable. He got everything he wanted. He's not a tragic figure, he's not a cautionary tale, he's not a hero fallen to darkness or a champion corrupted by chaos. He's just an orc who loved fighting, found the best possible fight, and gets to enjoy it forever. And that, in the grim darkness of the far future where there is only war, is somehow the closest thing to a happy ending that anyone has ever achieved.
Told you I knew where the best fighting was.